Hi, I'm Suki. Welcome to Getting Psychic, where you can listen to me use myself to test the theory that anyone can get psychic. Hello and welcome to Getting Psychic. I'm your host Suki, and I'm coming at you from a hotel room in Santa Fe. I'm speaking to an adorable, tiny, fuzzy microphone. And I think that even though it is definitely somewhat excruciating to talk to a machine for half an hour, it's time for a psychic update. So, the endeavor, getting psychic, continues to work. As you know, since my episode last January with Nikki Vescones, I, have been casually talking to animals. I've done it for some listeners, but then I realized it comes with a huge amount of responsibility, and I stopped feeling comfortable doing it for strangers because I realized that people who want you to talk to their animals, it's rarely cute and fun. And then once I realized that, I was thinking, oh yeah, anytime that I ever felt the need to reach out to an animal communicator was out of desperation. So, I mean, there's like a lot of difficulty and hardship, and there's often life or death conversations coming up or people wanting to find lost pets. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such an intense responsibility that I'm pretty tough. I could probably take it on, but because my endeavors are split into so many different paths, and I felt really guided to choose a direction recently, I have not put a ton of focus on it. I was really tempted to sign up for Nikki's really intense uh, grow your animal communication business course, not just like learn how to animal communicate. Like it's a very serious commitment. And I was really tempted to do it, but I keep having to stop myself because I already have 2 businesses and a podcast, and I am just like, "Okay, this can be your retirement plan." But it is such a beautiful practice, and I really do recommend it if you're here to get psychic, even though I know a lot of you already are, actively believing and engaging in your psychic skills. But there's curious people here too who are like, "Why can't I be clairvoyant?" I really recommend it as a gateway. It's so cool, and I've said this before, but once you when you do it with someone who you feel really safe with, you talk to their pet, and without vulnerability, you just say the little things that the little whispers that are visions or however, or feelings or emotions that you have that come through, you get validation, and it's a way to start to decode how you receive messages. It's a perfect getting psychic plan gateway. That is my prescription for everyone who is on the fence and wanting to unlock their skills. I really do feel like it's pretty magical. Okay, so this is kind of interesting because it brings me to a somewhat contrary idea in a way. So I'm in New Mexico right now doing the third module of an energy modality that I practice called Source Point. And it is so freaking cool. I know a lot of you have experienced something like this, but I am in love with the practice. And I feel so fortunate to have been exposed to it. But here's the crazy thing about Source Point. Whenever I go to it or practice it, my psychic messaging, visioning, clairvoyance, yada yada, is off the hook. Last time I was actually here for the second module in June, and I, eyes wide open, saw a guide a guide of the person who I was practicing on, standing outside of the window. And I had to sort of like do that cartoon thing where I was like, and like rubbed my eyes because it was so 3D, so clear, eyes wide open, that my first thought was, okay, well, this is obviously somehow a reflection on the window of, or from the window of a painting that's in this room. And then I looked around and I'm like, of course there's not. There's only geometric paintings of Source Point in this room. So, and then I looked back and there was some amount of communication going on. It smiled at me. And it was pretty mind blowing for someone who doesn't traditionally have that level of vision. Okay, but so here's the funny part. All of this whole podcast for the past couple years has been like figuring things out, exploring psychic realms, really digging in, interpreting. And the funny part is that I love Source Point so hard because the most primary study, the most primary factor of this practice is getting out of the way. It is like, don't interpret, don't even impose yourself. You're doing this beautiful energy work on people, and you basically completely step away and let them align with the blueprint for the health of the human body. And it is bonkers. Spending an entire weekend envisioning myself as basically a stick figure and disappearing is incredible, and it draws such a stark contrast to the investigating and exploring and asking that I often do here. And yet, of course, the irony is that when I'm practicing it and in the classes, I'm just like psychic AF, like seeing past lives and the whole nine. So I guess I kind of wanted to present that as food for thought, as an option, that if you're exploring your innate psychic abilities and you feel like something's missing, or you feel like there are roadblocks, maybe explore stepping out of the way more. Maybe explore putting down expectations and the desire to interpret, and just see what unfolds. Oh, did you know, speaking of, that you can text this podcast, like on every podcast, everywhere where you get this podcast, there's a thing that says text me or text us, and you can leave psychic updates if you are so inclined, or whatever else, unless it's mean. Don't do that. So I just can't get enough of this modality, and it's like very healing. I think it's funny too, because but it incorporates all sorts of principles, but they just don't talk about them in the same way that I'm used to in the spiritual community. So it's really intriguing. Like basically we learned something today that was very intense, and it's called drawing out. And that's just such the nature of Source Point. Like, even though the whole modality was channeled, they really don't talk about that until you're deep into it. And so a drawing out is basically equal to a type of entity retrieval. It encompasses withdrawing all external energies that are obstructing the flow of information from the blueprint. And think about the way that's stated. And you don't even need to bother mentioning that to your client. So imagine the difference in how you will feel if you're laying on a table and I am going to say, now I'm going to use this method and extract this huge ass entity that has obviously intercepted your field or whatever, versus actually not saying anything and just doing the drawing out while also myself essentially stepping out of the way. Like the blueprint for health and Source do everything. But it's so cool. Like, what? Let me see what other things. Okay, so one of the they were talking today about this. How do I put this? It's kind of like you're not interfering and putting story to anything and trying to like interpret all of the things that you're sensing and pull things out. You're just asking the body or cells to return to their natural order. And they actually told us today about a study that was done with a handful of really successful or well known energy healers. And I haven't looked up the study, but I'll just pass it on. They were talking about how they took cancer cells and each one of the energy workers did their thing on the cancer cells. And the one who had the most positive impact was simply calling upon the cells to return to their natural order. He wasn't like extracting negative energy or, I don't know, doing all the stuff that healers do. And listen, this is not a anti-healing or anti whatever modality that you practice, because all of them, I'm sure, have their merit. I just really like this one, and I find there's something magical that lies in the space where I'm not figuring things out and I'm not getting in the way. I love how once I start looking at, like, I'm in the container of this class, right? But then I start looking at all of the other things that I have going on in my life in a somewhat different way, because I've always had a tendency to like push, 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 fight, 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 do, do, do at a certain turning point in my life. Prior to that, I was like, I don't know, recovering from childhood, but I was essentially almost a beauty school dropout. So I don't know what switch got flipped, but then I just turned into some sort of like overachiever, but or overdoer, not necessarily overachiever. But so I feel like this came into my life as a gentle and powerful reminder of a different way to look at things. And I love it. Okay, so speaking of my endeavors, I I'm only going to talk about this stuff so that maybe, because maybe somehow it might apply to you or inspire some thought, not because I really want to sit on here and talk about my life. But so, I have this hair care company, and I own a beautiful salon and was a professional stylist for many years. And I just needed to pursue things that weren't just direct client all day standing behind the chair kind of stuff, obviously. So I started developing this line many years ago because basically I realized when I opened my own salon at 29 that the distributors were showing up and all they had was the same big hunks of plastic with lots of perfume. And I mean, I could stop it at that because it just seems so like homogenized and gross. But there's also the element that, synthetic fragrance and all of the other random stuff in the products make people really sick, especially people who work with them regularly, like professionals. So I started developing my own products and I'm trying to exercise openly embracing the fact that they're fucking amazing because they really are. Like, I'm not kidding. They're very special. And I put a massive amount of love and effort and attention to every detail. And I don't know, there's something about using them that's like you feel it energetically. Oh, and there's also I have this product called the Magic that is aptly named, but it has some metaphysical properties. The first ingredient, which means it's the most of, is called zeolite. And zeolite crystals are believed to offer several spiritual benefits, including protection from negative energy, spiritual cleansing, and enhancing intuition and psychic abilities. So, obviously, if you want to get psychic, use the magic. And it's hilarious because it goes right on your crown chakra. And of course, it is like a light purple color. But it's an insane product. And I say it's insane because it's in a biodegradable paper packaging. I worked for years with my female chemist, who's a badass, to get an anhydrous formula so that it could be in paper and also be a super high impact product. Because I have essentially two hairs on my head and I need some a thickening product. But so you put this product on at the roots of your hair and it gives you tons of volume and absorbs oil. And the weird part is that on your fingertips, it looks like straight oil. And then you put it into your hair and it's super matte and salty and thickening. So it sort of transforms. And then it's in biodegradable packaging, which I can't emphasize enough. Like hairstylists all over the country use it and sell it and get excited about it. And I'm always like, hey, remember that it's in paper. Like, let's not understate that. But anyway, uh, back to hair care for psychics, it's clearly activating your crown chakra. So anyway, come to think of it, while I'm at it, did you notice that Megan's Solar Glow of Solar Glow Meditations? Yes, thank you. That at some point a couple months ago, her hair got an update. Well, that is because I did a remote psychic hair care tutorial with her where I showed her a super simple way to sort of create air dried waves in her hair with my products. And also, while we're at it, Debbie Solaris of Galactic Akasha fame is super obsessed with the hair cream. And this is so sweet. Her assistant told me that she once got on a plane and was very worried that they were going to take the hair cream away from her. So if that's not marketing here, I don't know what is. Okay. Anyway, the whole point of that little tangent is that I was hiding. And I don't know if it's like a throat chakra thing because I thought, "Oh, you started a podcast. That's the craziest shit that I could ever fathom. You must have done so much healing to your throat chakra if you have the guts to think that anyone could possibly want to hear what you have to say or who you interview or what you've composed." So I was like, I must be doing really good because this is seems very unlike me to start a podcast. But Claire and I kind of channeled it, so we had to listen. So I had this sort of thing actually a month ago, July 1st. And the period leading up to it was just really sticky. And I know that you've probably had this where you're right on the cusp of a sort of revelation or breakthrough or change in pattern or change in thought. And you are so uncomfortable. It's like my blood is got sand in it. That's how I felt. I just was like, something's off, something's not working. Like all of the things that I'm trying to do are there's no flow. And that doesn't apply with everything. Like primarily Sparrow for Everyone, the hair care line, which is extremely important to me and a huge artistic outlet. But it's almost like I was putting so much into it and also hiding at the same time. And the itchy, sort of abrasive place that I got into was right on the cusp of me needing to realize that I'm the only one that's ever going to promote it and I'm the only one that's ever going to be able to be the face of it to get it where it needs to be. Even to the degree that I was like fully accepting of the fact that I needed to get on TikTok and not just Instagram, which is actually where a ton of the success that it has had e- exists because stylists share it on Instagram all the time. So that's how people have found it. But anyway, so that just allowed me to keep myself hidden and just post like beautiful pictures and video of the product and hair and and just completely obscure myself as the person behind it because of course I was thinking, Why would anyone care? Why would that be important?" So even after I determined, okay, I'm going to put videos on TikTok, I'm going to start giving behind the scenes of this brand because there's a lot there. There's a lot to tell. It's got a very interesting perspective and an interesting story. But I was still in the mindset where I was like, well, obviously someone else has to do it for me. Like I can't edit and film and do all the stuff. And I was sitting there like so frustrated about it because the people who I thought were going to make it work, it just wasn't aligning. And so I was like, fuck it. I went on TikTok and I created a video. And then I was like, oh, this is really easy and who cares? It was so easy to edit. I had some weird concept that it was impossible and someone else needed to do it. No, it was extremely easy. And now I'm not saying that it's been like 2 weeks, but I'm not saying that I've had like a ton of traction from it, but okay, here's the long-winded point to all of this that I'm saying. I put this in my phone for July 1st, 2026. I wrote, if S for E isn't there, or I don't know what term I use, but if S for E isn't where I need it to be, quit. And I was like, oh, that was liberating. I just gave myself permission to quit this thing that I've been actually doing undercover for 12 years. And so I don't know how this applies to something in your life, but it seems highly likely. So something about putting that in there in my phone, like there is a deadline, both gave me a huge sense of relief and lit a fire under my butt. So I go on TikTok and I start making videos and I was posting every single day. And here's the weird thing. In the beginning, engagement, the algorithm nonsense, um, it's not like you strike gold right away and you have a million followers and your content goes viral. But here's what did happen. And we obviously are going to look at this from the energetic perspective because that's why we're here. Creating it and filming videos of myself talking about what I made big movement. And I'm not saying that it's because I got maybe even any sales so far from that actual platform. I'm saying it's because I was putting my energy and my face and my voice out, and I was putting a new kind of focus on the project. And so I almost see it as like this radiating aura around the project, and I'm just feeding it. And that's what started making stuff happen, which is so odd. And I'm certain of it. Day one, I got a message from a salon that I reached out to. I think they're in LA, that I reached out to in the early days when I just had one product, the hair cream. And I was like, "Oh, they're so cool. They really need to carry this product." And it just kind of like fell apart and they never did. And then day one of me just putting my energy out there in a different way, they spontaneously reach out and say, it's finally time to pick up the brand." And then they make a massive order without ever having tried any samples of anything aside from the hair cream. You know how when things in your life happen and the difference between just a thing and a message? If you don't, obviously give it a try. It's very fun because you can pick out the messages. And I was like, "Okay, got it. Thank you." I was very aware that that was a nudge, like, "Yep, you're doing it." And then multiple things every day since I started refocusing my energy on it. New clients, new sales, new wholesale account, just like generating interest, just like buzz, 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 just because I decided to suck it up and put my face out there. But it isn't my face that's selling it, it is the energy. Although I did discover that if you face east when you're recording videos, it straight up looks like a crazy filter. Highly recommend like facing east at sun, like near sunset, is crazy. So I guess the big theme here is I bet there's someone out there who could use the nudge to take a different perspective, especially if there's someone who has tendencies like I have had to work really hard and almost create this momentum where you just have to work more. And so now I feel like I just flipped a switch and told things to flow. And always having the awareness of getting out of the way is so tied into that discovery. Getting out of the way in energy work, getting out of the way in psychic development, quote unquote, and getting out of the way of the success of that company. So, I mean, I just shouldn't even be here because getting out of the way is where it's at. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to be a voice box for that. So, I mean, part of why I'm talking about that brand, and even though my products do have metaphysical healing properties, part of why I would bother talking about that on a psychic podcast is because it's part of accepting that I have this platform and I should also use it. And again, someone else needs to be reminded to not hide. It's probably all of you. But maybe I will put a Getting Psychic discount code in the show notes for this episode. And there is something really powerful about intertwining your passions and your interests. And I do think energetically it's just a good idea for me to do that and do this and talk about it and not be like, oh God, nobody wants to hear about this. Because the thing is, you do. Everyone has hair, and these products are caregivers. It's crazy. You'll see. So, not to make this an infomercial, God help me, but really, I just kind of wanted to talk about how all of that stuff intertwines and how somehow sometimes getting out of the way means admitting that you exist and talking in front of a camera and talking about what you do. I guess there's getting out of the way and getting out of your own way. Okay, so I'm going to close this Getting Psychic update with the words that we use to close every source point meditation. And they are: may all beings be happy, peaceful, and free of suffering. Until next time. This episode was brought to you by Sparrow for Everyone, hair care for sensitive people. Ding! Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as we did. Be sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss a new episode. If you liked today's episode, please consider leaving a review to help the other psychics find their way here.